Welcome to Popper's Perspective. It's brought to you by Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store and mattress partner of the New York Giants, as we welcome you into the Hackensack Meridian Health podcast studio. Keep getting better. And we're joined by Dr. McKenzie, Kareem McKenzie, who played 7 years for the Giants, started all 105 regular season games during his 7-year term with the Giants, and all 11 postseason games. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Kareem, let's talk a little bit about Dr. McKenzie. What motivated you to sort of go down that path post-playing career?
Well, I think one of the most important aspects for me was to have something to do once my career was over. And I found that typically going into something that you have a passion for, that you have some experience with, and that was counseling in and of itself. And it was by happenstance that I had the opportunity to go to a program that was very amenable to helping me continue my career in some capacity, and that was William Patterson University. And after I graduated with my degree, I went and worked for a nonprofit down in Irvington, New Jersey, in a kids substance use program. And when I was there working with those youth and found that the tools that we had to help them overcome whatever it was they were experiencing, that they were inadequate. And I felt that it was a good opportunity for me to go ahead and continue that research and or start that research as a whole and kind of reinvigorate how we adjust to and how we deal with adolescents who are dealing with substance use problems. So King University had a program their first year. I think my cohort was the first cohort for counselor education and supervision, doctorate, of course. And here I am today, 7 years later now. Man, time flies.
Yeah, it certainly does. Time flies in a playing career as well. Is this something that, as you were getting deeper into your playing career and thinking about possibly what's next, was in the cards for you? Or is this something that post-playing you sort of gravitated toward?
I think it's more so post-playing, gravitating towards, because, back at that time in the late 2000, well, not late 2000s, but the late, 2010, 2011, you really weren't concentrated on a post-NFL career. It was more so the next season, per se. And I was always the type of individual to, in my downtime, to read. So I did a lot of reading, loved to read, enjoyed reading, until I went to my doctoral program. It was like, it took me a while to even want to read a menu, right? So I'm now getting back into reading, and I do like the idea of continually growing from a mental standpoint, getting a new wrinkle in my brain, and I just love to advocate. And that's one of the main things in being a counselor, is to advocate for those who are disadvantaged, who are, on the outskirts of society that people don't necessarily pay attention to.
Where does your experience as an athlete, as an elite athlete who made it through that funnel, as I always like to call it, for every kid in a certain age group that puts on the pads at 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, to make it through high school, to get to college, to eventually get drafted or invited to be in the NFL, and then to stay in the NFL? That's something that it's a 1 in a million, so to speak. Mm-hmm. How do you take those experiences and apply it to what you're doing now?
I think you have to have the same type of mentality, because with counseling and dealing with individuals who come into your office, no two individuals have the same problem, right? And it's almost to the extent, to use a football metaphor, it's like playing the Eagles on week 11, then week 14 you're playing them again, right? It's the same team, they're going to do something different, right? And every year it's different. That's what makes the football, I think, so great of a sport, is that no matter what comes, every week there's a new wrinkle or something different you can do to make it more challenging. And I don't think it's any different than that in the counseling session, that each individual has a different problem or something that they need assistance with. And you could have two individuals. You can look at the twin studies, some of the research that has been done on twins. They can have the same experiences and two completely different outcomes. So it's always a challenge, and you have to be prepared for that challenge on a weekly basis. And it really challenges you, I believe, to think outside the box in some instances, and the ways in which we deal with issues on the football field. It could be a certain blitz that's all of a sudden new. We have to figure out a way, how do we address that? So the next time we see it, we know. And through that experience and through that commonality and that rigor, we're able to go ahead and more acutely deal with whatever we come up against.
I've said this to Ernie Accorsi numerous times. Listen, he had a lot of great free agent signings. Antonio Pierce was a great free agent signing, bringing in Plexico Burress. But I always say that Kareem McKenzie might be his greatest and one of the greatest in Giants history, because you signed this deal to go from the Jets to the Giants, and they got every possible snap out of you over the terms of your contract. 105 games, 105 regular season games and starts. You never missed a game, rarely. And then you started all 11 in the postseason for the Giants. What was it like making that transition, coming to New York from the Jets to the Giants?
It was a lot different back then because the Jets were in Long Island, right? So it was at Hofstra University, and coming over here to the Giants, it was the same stadium, different locker room. And I think one of the most challenging aspects was to watch myself on film. Because for 4 years, I saw myself as the 67 in green. And now, for the first time in my career, I looked at practice film and I'm like, is that me? Like, just trying to figure out, is that who I am? And really acclimating myself to playing next to Chris Nee, my right guard for my duration here, and the terminology that we used in terms of the offense, and being able to go ahead and try and make it as seamless as possible, and getting used to driving up to Albany, those different things. So it was a culture change as well, to actually be in Giant Stadium every day versus once a week. So I think those aspects were challenging, but I'm grateful for those challenges. And I mean, who would have wrote a better ending to my career than what I experienced?
Not many people get to walk away as a Super Bowl champion. Michael Strahan did it after Super Bowl 42. There have been some other players, but most people, the fairy tale doesn't work out that way. What made your group so special? Because it really, O'Hara was an undrafted player. Seibert was an undrafted player. I'm going to the first group. Deal was a guy that's a 50-50 ball as to whether you're going to make the team or not based on where he got picked. Obviously, Snee was picked high. You were a third-round pick. Why was the sum of the parts all-pro?
I think it was the ability to be on the field as often as possible. I forget the string of consistent starts we had with the same lineup, but it was a record at that time that I think was eventually broken by a New York Jets offensive line. But to be together, I think it was for 48 plus games. So you're talking about 3 years of consecutive starts, day in and day out, and being able to play with one another and to see it all through the same lens. Because we had played together so long and so often, we kind of knew what or how we would view things. And that's I think one of the important aspects is to make sure you're all seeing the same thing through the same lens, and knowing how we deal with those situations, because we've had so much repetition to go ahead and do those things. And also, we would watch film together. We watched film together and made certain that whatever we did, we all understood how we saw things, what we would do. And it got to a point where we didn't even really need to communicate, because we automatically knew this is what's going to happen.
There's a picture that I saw that really, I think, kind of sums up what you're talking about. It's in the 100-year celebration from last year. I mean, you guys, whenever you take a picture, you just fall in line to how you lined up, right? It's not really conscious, though, is it? That's just kind of where you all go to, right?
That's our pecking order, so to speak. It's always something to where, we've done it so often that's just automatically what we do. It's sort of the repetition of, which shoe do you tie first? Is it your right shoe or your left shoe? Right. You just know what it is, and you feel uncomfortable if you're out of place. Something feels a little off. So I think that through our repetition, through being around one another for so long, that's just what we do.
The thing about the picture that really jumped out at me, it was on the field opening day, probably after the ceremony. So you guys are lined up in order, and then there's Ahmad, there's Brandon, and there's Eli, all in this picture. And it really kind of sums up what that team from, at least when you joined the Giants in 05 through 11, what that team was all about, wasn't it?
I think so. I think so, because that's one of the things that, excuse me, going through and thinking back on those things, which I don't often do at times, because sometimes you just want those memories to be as crystal clear as they can, and you don't want to dwell on it, so to speak. Not that you dwell, but sometimes people will say, "Oh, you look like you can still play." Well, my best by date is long gone, right? So, in that vein of what we did back then, the offense we had kind of transmutated and became the Giants' offense. Whatever system we were running, and I forget what was the impetus of it was, the beginning of it was, we kind of took it and transformed it into what we did, and we made it our own, and it was uniquely built to our talents and the way our team was built. And because we were able to consistently have the same individuals on the field week in and week out, we were able to turn it into what it ultimately came to be, which was pretty darn good offense, I would say.
All right, the final question, and we're talking with Kareem McKenzie, and it's everybody has a different answer. So let's take the Super Bowls out, because that's what you dream of,
right?
But is there a game that is one that always puts you in a happy place? For some guys, it's the Dallas game in the playoffs. Others, it's Green Bay or San Francisco, or whatever the case might be. Is there one game that you remember, that walking off the field or that post-game locker room, where you're like, man, that was some day, or that was some night?
I honestly think it would be unfair to say one game in particular sticks out, because there are quite a few, for me specifically, that do that. One of them of which is the first game ever at the new Dallas Stadium, Jerry Land down there. The first home game they ever had in that stadium was a overtime loss to us. That will always be memorable, because it was like, oh, the first game ever, like, we get to be in the record books for this in particular, right? The second would be the NFC Championship game in Green Bay. It was unbelievably cold. To have yourself be able to perform in an environment like that, as cold as it was, I never plan on being that cold again in life. I will never wear a short sleeve shirt ever outside, anything that cold. It could be a fire. I'm going to find clothes first before I go outside, right? And also, I think the Super Bowls, of course, you have to include those aspects, because the first one, 2007, no one gave us a shot that we would even be able to come close to what New England was on their offensive side of the ball. And we found a way to win. The second one, and even prior to that game, during that season when the New England Patriots came here, and they were, I think it might have been the last game of the season for them. I forget exactly where it was, but we were so close to beating them that we knew if we saw them again, we had a pretty good shot at getting it done. So a lot of different games hold those memories, and honestly, I would have to sit down and really think about.
I'm going to give you one more.
Okay.
Just in wrapping up, because you were playing the Ravens, and Ray Lewis and the Ravens were touting about how they hadn't given up a 100-yard rusher in X amount.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't give up a 100-yard rusher that day. But I think as a team, you ran for like 250 on them at Giant Stadium. And that was where the offensive line was in full force.
08, right?
08.
So, interestingly enough, we didn't have a 100-yard rusher individually. But I think overall that season, we were close to having 3 running backs over 1,000 yards for the whole season. So just the way we were able to go ahead and run the ball as a whole, and now that I think about that was the main sticking point for them. And I think Was it Rex? Was their defensive coordinator back then as well?
I don't know if Rex was still there or had he gone to the Jets yet. He might have still been there.
He might have. So I mean, that was one of the things about them that they were, Haloti Nagata. I mean, just that defensive line as a whole. We knew it was going to be tough sledding to go ahead and get the ball going, but
yeah, Rex was still there.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those different aspects. A lot of great memories. Got to do your self-care, gentlemen. Go ahead, make sure you keep those good memories and keep that mind working, right? But yeah, a lot of great stuff. Thank you,
Kareem, Dr. Kareem McKenzie. Thank you for sharing your post-playing experiences with us, as well as some times as the player. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Great to see you. One of the top 100 in the history of the Giants on the Pauper's Perspective, brought to you by Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store and mattress partner of the New York Giants.